I would like to introduce Caoimhe Doherty, co-founder and director of Throwella, which helps racehorse owners and equestrians connect to transition horses into off-track careers. Caoimhe is in the middle. I'm going totally out of order. Right next to me is Kim Duffy, Racing Queensland's senior animal care manager and manages Queensland Off the Track, which works to improve aftercare outcomes for retired racehorses in a variety of ways. And then at the opposite end as myself is Kirsten Green, executive director of the Retired Racehorse Project. Like I said, each of you works for organizations that have created events that have moved the needle significantly on aftercare and raising awareness of thoroughbreds and second careers and driving demand for them. So could each of you start by giving us maybe like a 3 to 5 minute overview of your organization and these game changers of events that you've put on? And if we could start with Caoimhe, that would be great.
Yeah, so our organisation is Throwella, which is Irish for another direction. So it all fits quite well. We have 3 main pillars, which is connect, support, promote. And we're quite different to a lot of organisations in that we have no hardware. You know, we don't have the bricks and mortar. We don't take any horses in. Our whole idea is to support. So to support people on their retraining journey. To connect. So if you own a horse, whether you're an owner, breeder, trainer, that you get in touch with us and we'll help you find retrainers or new homes or whatever that is, whatever it is you're looking for. And the final bit is promote. And I always say to people, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So it's all about...
Which I'm just going to say, since you can see it, there is a QR code that will link to a video talking about exactly what she is describing. So I just wanted to stop you so they knew exactly why that all of a sudden changed on the screen.
So then pulling those 3 together, Sarah Sands, our co-founder, she came up with the idea of our Christmas show. And I remember she came up with the idea during the October sales in Newmarket, and that was in October, and we had the show in December. Like, I thought she was mad, but I probably didn't have the energy to dissuade her at the time. But it's been a game changer for us. So the whole idea of our Christmas show is that we're connecting, we're supporting, and we're promoting. So this year we had 12 teams of thoroughbreds. So we have 12 jockeys, 12 professional riders. So that's show jumpers, eventers, dressage riders at certain stages. Then we have an amateur rider. This rider generally is from our Throwella community. So people who are involved in our clinics and take part in a lot of our different events throughout the year. And then finally, for a little bit of speed and a little bit of fun, we put in a kid on a pony. So we've 12 rounds, all the senior riders are on a thoroughbred of some sort. So we've never distinguished between, the raced thoroughbred and the unraced. They just have to have a Weatherby's or equivalent passport. So jockeys jump first round, then it goes to professional rider, then the amateur rider, and then the child goes in for the little bit of speed, and they generally rock around and it looks really good. And then we have a jump off at the end, and we do it like in a relay formation. So the jockey jumps off first, he jumps fences 1 to 6, and then the child then finishes up. But one of the things that it's done, it's brought a huge amount of communities together, the sport horse industry, the racing industry in terms of, Throwella is doing there, but it brought in the jockeys, and the breeders and the owners. And then finally, you add the kid, and we think you're educating from the ground up, that they're seeing the thoroughbred, from day one. And the other part of that too, and I think a lot of people don't realise that if you're a little kid and your idol is Rachel Blackmore or it's Paul Townend, to be able to ride on a team with them is amazing. And one of the things that we've had is this year, I think we had 8 champion jockeys. So that was, flat jockeys, champion conditional, champion amateur, champion lady rider. I think it was 5 Olympians we've had. It's amazing, and I think the thoroughbred industry has a really unique perspective to be able to pull all those together.
How do you guys choose which kids get to do the pony racing? I bet there's so many kids that want to do that.
Well, we're very clever and a bit a bit cheeky about that. So initially, we handpicked the kids that were the sons and daughters of the big trainers owners, but. And I feel bad now, and we've changed it. But the whole idea was to bring these people on the journey, and as Valerie said earlier, we're so lucky in Ireland that our thoroughbred industry is so linked to the sports horse industry. We've all grown up in pony club, whether it's hunting or whatever. And when we started Throwella, it was only 5 years ago, but we had to bring these people with us, and we had to inform them about what we were doing. So the best way to do that was through their kids.
Perfect. Kim, are you willing to share with us what you do?
Yes, so the Queensland Off the Track program is a multifaceted program, and we've launched 9 major initiatives to date, and one of those is our premium event partnerships. So we currently have 2 partnerships in place, one with the Royal Queensland Show and one with Magic Millions. So both of these partnerships were developed to create exciting competitive opportunities with significant prize money available for those who invest in the retraining of retired racehorses. So both with 2 primary objectives. Firstly, to promote racehorse aftercare, and secondly, to stimulate demand for the thoroughbred and standardbred breeds. So to touch on the first partnership with the Royal Queensland Show, that's Queensland's largest community show. Anywhere between 300 to 400,000 people attend that show. So it's really important to us in terms of the audience at that show. So members of the community who majority have no connection or understanding of the racing industry, or even the equestrian sectors for that matter. So showcasing aftercare to that audience is really important to us. So we have 3 activations at that show, the headline event being our show jumping showcase events. So this event is exclusively for retired racehorses, and it's an annual show. So we run 2 classes there, 120 centimetre class that has a $50,000 prize money pool, and we also have a 105 centimetre class with a $25,000 prize money pool. Our second activation is Thoroughbred and Standardbred Day. So for that, we offer $25,000 prize money across 18 lead and undersaddle classes, so focusing on the hacking and the showing. And our third activation there is we run a horsing around show. So we have acclaimed horse trainer Dave Manchin, and he incorporates retired racehorses into his twice daily shows. And he talks about his training methods and how they can apply to retired racehorses. So that show is, as I mentioned, very well received by the general community. We also have a lot of distinguished guests who attend that show. The Minister for Racing, the Queensland Premier. It's very well attended and puts us, firmly in a good position to promote what we do to people who might not necessarily know about aftercare. The second premium event partnership, and we talk about this in a bit more depth later on the panel, is our partnership with Magic Millions. So we hold an annual show jumping event in January each year called the Queensland Off the Track Cup. And that show jumping competition, it's run in conjunction with the January Magic Millions Summer Racing Carnival. And we hold a number of qualifying events throughout the year for riders to compete in and qualify to compete in the final. And we're growing that competition nationally year on year. So for this year, we'll be holding qualifier events in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. And they're all the top place getters from each of those qualifier events compete at the final in January. And January 2026, we'll see $100,000 prize money at that event. So significant prize money available.
Awesome. Kirsten, how about you?
So I'm with the Retired Racehorse Project, commonly referred to as RRP, and our event is called the Thoroughbred Makeover, but kind of colloquially, sometimes the event gets referred to as RRP, even though that's the organization's name. So we have been around as an organization since 2010, and the Thoroughbred Makeover in its current format is celebrating 10 years this year. We brought it to Kentucky 10 years ago. So as an organization, we really operate in what we consider to be the incentive and advocacy sector of North American aftercare. And like Quiva, we do not take ownership of horses. We don't have we have an office, but we don't take ownership. We don't take care of horses. We don't there's no barn to show people what we do. our real showcase is the thoroughbred makeover. So again, we are very much about the incentivization, the advocacy, promoting the breed. We really feel that if more people see other people being successful, having a good time, making thoroughbred riding accessible, that's going to drive demand, and that's going to increase the value of the horses. So we've been keeping track of off-track prices like immediately upon retirement since 2015, and we've seen that price go up 95% in the last 10 years. So that's kind of the big thing. What is the Thoroughbred Makeover, actually? It is a retraining competition, and we have an application process where the trainers are approved first. We look to see just baseline, not necessarily are they going to be competitive, but are they going to complete this process safely, productively, positively? We have not an aggressive level of competition, but it's a level of competition that has to be taken seriously. It's not for a casual participant. So our application committee is operating as an independent body from our staff and assessing these applications, and we do 10 disciplines. So we try to make sure that our application committee has representation across all of those disciplines. Once the trainer is approved to participate, then they can enter up to 3 eligible horses. So this application process takes place over the winter. Usually about in January is when we're accepting applications. And then they have all year to train towards the horse show itself, which is here at the Kentucky Horse Park every October. So at this point, we have well over $100,000 in prize money. This year, we got a generous pledge that increases our prize money another $25,000 for the next 5 years. But we also have incentives that are offered by aftercare organizations, by breeders, by resellers that are offering to help defray some of the costs for trainers that are taking horses from their programs to the makeover. We're working on a scholarship option, which is through ASPCA Right Horse grant. And we also have special awards that are offered usually by regional breeders groups or track groups that had the horses that raced at their tracks. So collectively, with all of those different kind of incentives and prize money and everything, we're expecting that we're going to put about $200,000 back into the pockets of the people that participate in the makeover this year. So really trying to encourage that. But I think a lot of people also do this because it's a really great structure and community when you are going through your first year with your off-track thoroughbred. You have something to work towards at the end of the year. You have a community that is around you and has been through this process and can help you troubleshoot and can share the highs and, let's be honest, share the lows. Like, your horse is like blown an abscess and thrown the shoe for like the 3rd time, and you're just like, please, just like give it a rest. So that has really become a big, significant part of the aftercare landscape here in North America. Horses are pretty traditionally marked as RRP eligible, meaning that the horse retired within the required time period to be eligible to participate. And that window advances each year. So we're always specifically dealing with horses that have recently retired from racing. So that's the Thoroughbred Makeover. Overall, we're still very focused on inspiration, which is through Thoroughbred Makeover, but also education and service. So we used to publish a quarterly publication. We're still publishing that amount of content digitally online for free, covering topics on training, nutrition, care, and we have free classified listings on our websites for thoroughbreds at any stage. So we have people that are private individuals that just need to move a thoroughbred on. We have aftercare organizations that list all of their horses with us. So we're offering that service, again, completely free. So everything that we do is just trying to make sure that if you want to ride a thoroughbred, that you have the tools and resources that you need to be successful. So that's kind of the gist of what we're trying to do.
Thanks. We all know probably better than we want to, events cost money, and they cost a lot of money. They're really expensive to put on. And you guys not only put events on, but you give money away at your events. So can you guys each kind of talk us through a little bit, just like how you monetize those events and make it all happen from that financial standpoint?
Yeah, sure. So in Queensland, we have an equine welfare levy on prize money. And that money is used directly by Racing Queensland to fund our equine welfare initiatives, including the Queensland Off the Track program. So for our 2 premium event partnerships, we don't operate these events. We provide the sponsorship for those, and we pay the entirety of the prize money. So I guess that takes out a lot of cost from our perspective in terms of actually operating and managing these events. And that also enables us to then set that prize money to really assist us in stimulating demand. So ours is a bit of a different model. We don't fundraise, it just costs us money, but we're supported by that equine welfare prize money levy to do so.
Yeah, so we're similar in certain ways. So we're very lucky in Ireland that we ask for money and we get it. You know, we're lucky that we get it. And the Irish European Breeders' Fund actually sponsor all our prize money. So they've doubled that this year. So we have €50,000 that comes directly from the EBF to go into our prize money. And we run very similar to Kim. We sponsor a lot of competitions throughout the year. And generally what we do is the highest placed thoroughbred. So we piggyback on everything as much as we can, you know, because we're such a small team and we don't have the time or the energy or, you know, to do all that we can. So we just give prize money in loads of different areas. But in terms of our Christmas show, they just do it to win. We don't offer prize money there. So our Christmas show does cost us an awful lot of money to run. It probably costs about €30,000 for the one day. Now, we do have 2 classes in the morning. We have an 80 centimetres jumping class, we have a 90 centimetre class, and then we have a pony class. So the entry there is about €20 per entry, which I think is actually very cheap compared to how expensive it is to enter here in the United States. But there is prize money in those classes. I think it's maybe €400 or €500. Again, it comes from the European Breeders' Fund. And we then, for the Christmas show, it's all about winning. But we sell everything at that show. So we sell signage, we sell the fences, you know, there's ads in the catalogue, you name it, we try and sell it. What I want to do this year is like sell the kids. So, you know, the spot, you know, that children's spot on the team, I think we should auction it, you know, and I think we'd make a fortune. Like, you know, if you want to jump with Jeff Curran and Paul Townend, like, you know, how much would you pay? That would be fun. But I don't know if we'll be allowed to do that. But yeah, we sell everything and it's been great. Like, we have earned an awful lot of money in the past 2 years doing that. And we've probably got a little bit more clever about how we do that and how we leverage what we're doing. And in fairness to Ireland and the people in the industry, they love horses. No one has ever said no. And they take a huge amount of ownership then. And I got a great buzz this year. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Irish show jumping, but there's a big Nations Cup team, or Nations Cup show at the RDS, the Dublin Horse Show, called the Aga Khan. They've never had an Aga Khan fence, but we have an Aga Khan fence at our Christmas show. So, yeah, we've got innovative with it, but it's really worked for us.
Fantastic. How about you? I feel like your answer is slightly different.
Well, I just want to first recognize that TCA has been our longest and biggest supporter. They have been with us, I believe, since 2012. And again, we were formed in 2010. So we would not have made it to the point that we have without a very generous grant from TCA each year. So we very much appreciate their kind of inclusive approach to funding and, you know, looking at innovative programs that are a little bit outside of what it is traditionally thought of as aftercare here in the US. But the Thoroughbred Makeover is more than half of our operating budget. And I definitely was listening to some of the sustainability conversation, because when you have an event like ours that is a huge part of your programming and a big reason why you're able to attract sponsorships, there's an upside to that and there's a downside to that. And when you have a situation where, you know, economically right now we're in a depression, and so you start seeing the effects of that fairly quickly. But we're like any other nonprofit organization in North America. We're applying for grants. We are doing corporate sponsorships. We do have programmatic revenue. We do have charge entry fees. We charge an application fee and a registration fee at the point of origination in the winter. And then there are the actual hard event costs that are charged towards the end of the year when we're coming up on the event. So in terms of what participants will pay to RRP for executing on this, it's pretty typical that between your registration fees and depending on what all you opt into at the show itself, you're going to be in maybe $7,000, $8,000 depending on what all you do. But I will say the experience that we are providing is on par with rated shows. We are using rated judges. We are using like beautiful cross-country fences and beautiful show jumps and everything. We really pride ourselves on the experience that we're giving to the competitors. And for a lot of competitors, showing at the Kentucky Horse Park is a bucket list item, and being able to come here to the heart of thoroughbred country is a bucket list item. So. But yeah, we have to raise all of that from scratch every year. People have asked us, where does the prize money come from? It's a budgetary line item. It's an expense for us. We have to raise it just like anything else. So that's the boat that we're in.
So I'm going to stick with you for this next question, and I am going to 100% admit that this is a leading question because I used to have Kirsten's job at the RRP, and it's challenging. Fundraising is challenging, and it's evolved a lot over the years, and you guys have really been dynamic in how you've evolved with the climate of just the general economy and fundraising and whatnot. So can you talk through a little bit kind of how your efforts have evolved over the years and some of the challenges you've run into?
Particularly in COVID and years since have really been like, we kind of apexed like a bit before that, and now we're kind of at what I would consider like our kind of ongoing norm in terms of the numbers that we're able to generate and everything. And, we made some good decisions in COVID time. Jen had that role at the time. And we made an early decision to cancel our event, and we were very proactive about it. And that was probably the smartest thing we could have done.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, I know. So we were able to sustain and get through that. And then every year since, it's been a little something. So like we started to see cost of doing business go insane, kind of in about 22, and then it just kind of kept taking off. And we've always been a little bit slow to raise our entry fees, and we try not to do it like harshly at once. We just try to kind of incrementally creep things up. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that, and this is a perception that kind of sticks with thoroughbreds in this country, is that this is the horse that you can get when you can't afford the purpose-bred warm blood or quarter horse. So we're not dealing with people that have a ton of fun money. So they're really putting a lot of their resources into participating, and so we want to take that very seriously. And they are acquiring a horse to participate in this, and they're training that horse over and keeping that horse over 10 months at least, which we estimate probably costs them at least $10,000, $11,000 of their own money as well. So we always are trying to be very cognizant of that. And I think that's why we've really ramped up our efforts in terms of scholarships and incentives to make sure that we're finding ways to reward them that aren't necessarily performance-based as well. But sorry, back to your actual question. We've certainly experienced where we have felt like we've gotten very heavily dependent on corporate sponsorships. And those of you guys that deal in corporate sponsorships, my God, you know how much work they are to fulfill and make sure that everybody gets their logo where it's supposed to be and it's not next to somebody else, and their vendor booth can't be facing east, and like, it's so much work. And you could really have like 2-3 whole people just doing that in a perfect world. So we've really tried to kind of balance that out and kind of strategically focus a bit more of our efforts on the charitable side, private donors, grants, and that sort of thing, and really build out that donor base a little bit better. One other thing that has been really influential for us in the last couple of years is the use of peer-to-peer fundraising. And I think that does really well with a younger audience. They're savvy with social media, they're great storytellers, and one of the most effective things that you can do to build your donor base is to have the people that already support you tell their story. So we do that in a couple of different ways. We've been involved with an event called the Real Rider Cup for the last, since 2017. And that has been a kind of peer-to-peer based model. The people that enter to compete in it, it's just a fun show jumping competition, but the cost of admission is that they pledge to raise $1,000. And we were the original beneficiary. This is Anita Motion, Grand Motion's wife, came up with this. A little bit later down the road, New Vocations actually came on as a beneficiary, and also Fair Hill Thoroughbred Horse Show have been the beneficiaries for the last couple of years. And we get to collaborate on that together. RRP handles a lot of the administration. New Vocation hosts the event, so they're doing a lot of the boots on the ground work. And I think that what is really important about that is that it demonstrates the value of collaboration, and that we can all be out here, theoretically competing for the same dollar, but we can still work together to collectively raise money. So when we saw how successful that could be, we've also applied it to a fundraiser that we have that is specific for our makeover trainers, and it's a similar model. We call it the Make the Makeover campaign, and the pledge is that you try to raise $1,000, and if you raise $1,000, we return your registration fees. So they're going to get $350 back for achieving that goal. And that has been really good as well, because it also, rewards them, gives them an opportunity to offset their fees. They're also doing the storytelling and sharing their experience to get their community involved in their process. And that has done quite well for us. And then this year, somebody gave us, our Equine Equipment gave us a zero-turn mower. So if you are the highest raising trainer, you're going to actually go home with a whole lawnmower.
A whole lawnmower.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah. So it's taken just trying to be proactive, and sometimes despite your best efforts, like, you are still going to lose a sponsorship with no notice. And I'll be honest, I had to rewrite our budget in August last year because we just had to adjust and look at where we were spending things and how things were being reallocated, and look at the reality of the situation. And it's just constant work and planning and adjusting.
Thank you. That was a great overview. Thank you. Cueva, I'd like to talk with you a little bit about the celebrity twist that you put on your event. You have jockeys competing over jumps in different tack, and having those types of ambassadors, how does that impact your event from a monetary standpoint, a visibility standpoint, the fact that you're then building these ambassadors that I'm sure well after your event are still working on your behalf?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a huge financial, upgrade. And actually, maybe there is, in the fact that the people who sponsor the teams, they're actually pretty competitive about what jockey they want on their team. And we've been lucky in that a lot of the trainers, they want their jockey to be on their team and stuff like that. So that's been a bonus to bring the trainers on that journey. But I suppose the one thing about having the jockeys on it, and when I think back to 2021 when Sarah came up with the idea, was just to get them to engage with Troella, engage with that second part of the horse's career. And they're fantastic ambassadors, because in Ireland, we touched on it earlier, they're good riders. They grew up show jumping. They're really good horse people. And I suppose through the evolution of social media, we've really seen that evolve. And this year we had Oisin Murphy. He's a champion jockey in the UK. He's multiple Group 1 winning rider, and he came over and he jumped, and his team was second, and he just jumped so beautifully. But we had all that social media coverage. He did his own social media, and they're speaking to people about it. And I think one of the big benefits to me from watching last year was Paul Townend, who's been our champion jumps jockey in Ireland for I don't know how long now. But he was reunited with a horse called Arvika Legionnaire, a graded winning jumper as well. and they jumped the most beautiful first round, and then they came in and they were flat to the mat. But we actually could not get him off that horse, and the smile on his face, and he talked about it. Paul was quite serious, but when he was on our Vika and when he was jumping and when he was interviewed after, to me, he seemed like a completely different person. And I think that connection, when they realize that these horses are still going strong and they've had another great day with them and they can see the great lives that they're having, they carry that everywhere they go. And we've seen that with all of our jockeys. And there was a big breeder who came to the show last year, and he just said to me, he was like, I had no idea. And he said, I don't think anyone can truly understand it till they're in it and they're seeing it and they're touching it. And we talk about it, bringing people to the racehorse and getting them to touch that horse. And it's all about creating ambassadors for you and keeping that going. But the jockeys have been great. And the same thing again with the professional show jumpers. A lot of them, the last thing on their mind would be having a thoroughbred. And the eventers are a little bit different. But again, you're bringing them on that journey and just changing their mindset. And a really proud moment for me a couple of years ago was we had Jeff Curran, and he was actually on the winning team with Charlie Swan, and his daughter jumped as well. But 2 nights later, he won the puissance at the London International Horse Show. And he's there in his, I don't know what they call them, his army uniform, the greens, and I just thought, we're getting there. And if he can go out and say, I had a really good time at the Troella Christmas show and I rode the most fabulous horse and he was a beautiful ride and we jumped clear, that does more for us than, spending 100,000 on a marketing campaign. It's just about getting that people on the journey and converting them, I think, anyway.
That's fantastic. And Kim, I know that you guys have a tremendous partnership with Magic Millions for your January show. Can you talk just a little bit about what it means to have a partner like that and what they bring to the table from a logistics standpoint and also just that standpoint of the greater public perception in the thoroughbred industry and the general public?
Yeah, so Magic Millions have provided us with a platform that we couldn't even dream of achieving on our own. So as I mentioned earlier, our event is run during the January Magic Millions Summer Racing Carnivals. So all of the biggest names in racing are there and they attend this event. But also to touch on ambassadors as well, that's something that Magic Millions brings to this event. So for example, we have Zara Tindall, member of the British royal family and former Olympian, compete every year in this event as a celebrity exhibition rider on a retired racehorse to raise awareness of the versatility of the breed. We have, the audience at Magic Millions, for example, actor Chris Hemsworth, his wife Elsa Pataki is an ambassador for the show jumping day. Famous footballers, you name it, they're there. So to have those eyes on aftercare and them all, sharing this event on social media, the reach is just unreal. So Magic Millions are honestly a media and marketing powerhouse, and without them we wouldn't be able to promote what we do and we wouldn't be able to promote the aftercare of retired racehorses and our programs and our initiatives available without having a partner such as Magic Millions. So we're incredibly grateful for their support.
Fantastic. I will give you a break and go back to Kirsten, but I'd actually like all three of you to weigh in on this if you have thoughts on it. An event with a lot of prize money attracts a lot of people, but sometimes it can have unintended consequences, and sometimes those unintended consequences aren't amazing. So can you talk through any challenges you've had in that regard?
Yeah, I think when we launched the makeover in Kentucky, we didn't have any concept of how many people were going to show up. We were like, it's $100, come do this thing with us in October. And all of a sudden we were dealing with 250 people, which is 3 times what we thought we were actually going to get. And the years that followed that, we got to a point we received, I think, 800 or 900 applications in 2018, which there's going to be no way. We knew that we had a retention rate and that we were going to end up with about half as many people that would actually make it to the horse park in October. And so I think what we really saw was this kind of arc of commitment to the process. And because the entry fee was so nominal at the time, we had people that were just like, and they would, cough up $100 and sometimes never even register a horse. And we have also made some really deliberate decisions over the years that have addressed kind of the commitment to the process. I think I mentioned earlier that it's not an unattainable level of competition, but it's very deliberately an intermediate rider's level of competition. We don't have 2-foot hunters. That's 2-foot hunters, in our opinion, is for the rider and not for the horse. And we have a very explicit reason for why we do that, because we think that, or we actually know that when they go around in the hunter ring at 2 feet, the horses don't jump well over 2 feet. And usually they're a little wild looking, and might be jumping kind of inverted. And when you're selling your event as a showcase for the breed, what kind of good is that doing to dispel any kind of negative stereotypes around the breed? Similarly to that, some of the concepts around thoroughbreds are hard to keep. It's hard for me to get weight on my thoroughbreds. We have an arrival exam, and we do it with a team of veterinary interns that's led by one of our board members, and we do body condition scores and just a general inspection of every single horse that comes to the event. And those two things, not specifically the 2-foot hunters, though we do get that in every single survey every year, just to bring back the 2-foot hunters, but our application process is a lot more involved now. We're really looking to see, we need to see video, we need to see show results, we need to really have a demonstration that you are capable of doing what we're gonna ask you to do in October, and do it at very least safely. Because we don't want to get in a position where we're just countering what the effort is behind the event. So now we're kind of at a point where we aren't attracting 800, 900 entries, and I am okay with that, because what's happened is that our retention rate has totally changed. And the number of people that are committing to the process and sticking it out through the end and doing all the work to get there is a much stronger rate of completion than we had back when we were getting hundreds and hundreds of participants. So, I think we certainly got some criticism in the early years about if prize money was attracting the right people. And, we had a handful of years where we had kind of celebrity riders that were they were good riders, and so they were going to get around and they were going to get their paycheck and they were going to go. And I don't personally think that did a ton for us in terms of what the true mission of the event was. And so I think that, really the people that are making this event what it is and as effective as it is the talented amateurs, the talented juniors, and the trainer that is coming up and making a name for themselves and wants to platform their program. And we've really just kind of seen that and fostered it and just tried to build upon that.
Fantastic. Anybody else have anything to add?
Yeah, I've probably got 3 points for what to consider, I suppose. And the first thing, I guess you don't want unintended outcomes from creating feature events such as these. So the first program we launched prior to even delving into premium event partnerships was our event sponsorship program, and that's for our grassroots competitions. So through that program, we provide sponsorship to pony clubs, to equestrian organisations, horse sport clubs, agricultural show societies, for all levels of combinations, from beginners to advanced, across all disciplines. And through that program, we sponsor anywhere between 150 to 200 events a year. And I think that's really important to have, that grassroots level competition, sponsorship and support in place first, before you look at doing the higher level shows and the feature events and showcases and things like that. It also provides a pathway for those riders and something to aspire to compete in those events. So that's the first point. Secondly, I think as well, our learnings over the years was to really look at the eligibility criteria, because what we didn't want to do is have these big prize money events and unintended welfare outcomes. So someone pulling a 26-year-old unfit horse out of a paddock to come and send it around at one of these competitions. So that was something that we've changed year on year in tightening that up. So everything from obviously just the same as the makeover project, having official show jumping heights, so we won't go anything under a metre. As you know, we've all touched on, we want to showcase these horses. Secondly, introducing qualification rounds, and even to get into those, having to show records of that horse and rider competing and having qualification rounds at that height within the 6 or 12 months prior to that competition as well. That also stopped horse swapping as well. So what we didn't want to do is, for the purposes of this event, someone who never rides a thoroughbred just going and picking one for the day, taking out $100,000, and they don't touch a thoroughbred again until the event next year. So having those qualification rounds, prior performance records, everything that they must submit to gain entry into these events is a big one as well. So
just to add to that, interestingly, we haven't really seen that in Ireland. Troella was never actually meant to be what it is now. It was only meant to be a website, for information at one stage, and now we're doing all these different things. But when the EBF came on, we had all this prize money to give out. So we, added working hunter classes, and we actually found that a lot of the money wasn't being won because the people weren't participating, but we had kind of missed a step in that we thought, oh, sure, they'll all be ready to rock and roll, but they weren't. And that was when we had to relook at the clinics and getting people jumping and creating that gradual process for them. And one of the things that which has been really interesting for me, and we've kind of relooked at it now, is in Ireland, if you're an equestrian, everyone wants to compete at the Dublin Horse Show. It's, the biggest, top of the pops, it's the biggest show of the year. And we looked at the young event horse class, and we put on prize money for the 4 and 5 year old class and the young event or the young rider class. And we had 1 or 2 horses in year 1, 1 and 2 horses in year 2. But all the money that we offered was never actually won. But it turned out that those 4-year-old horses, they were either still in training or they weren't just ready to compete there yet. The same with the 5-year-olds. So we've had to completely relook at that. And again, we still have prize money left over from time to time, but it just makes us think, okay, well, we need to angle it differently, or we need to educate more. And I think when we look back at the Christmas show in year 1, it wasn't great. There was a lot of poles on the ground. But when we looked at it this year, the horses jumped so well, the riders were so good, which meant that the program was working. Putting in those smaller classes, I know you're not doing that, but we really needed to. And we had to have that education in those clinics and put all our money into education and bringing people on the journey rather than expecting them to have that finished product, which we kind of naively thought everyone had.
I think that's just a good point I'd like to touch on, as well as the education aspect, because I think with any of these initiatives that any jurisdiction runs that stimulates demand for horses is fantastic in terms of creating homes, but there's also the unintended consequence that you also increase the number of people who are taking on these horses that sometimes shouldn't be. So having a range of educational support initiatives available is incredibly important. Particularly, when you are running showcase and feature events. And look, every jurisdiction in Australia does something different in this space. For us at Queensland Off the Track, we run a subsidised lessons program. So any retired racehorse in Queensland receives free lessons every single year for the remainder of the horse's life. So we pay for that at Racing Queensland. They're all issued vouchers to the owners and carers of these horses, and I think just having programs in place like that to support the new owners and riders and continue that education and learning journey is really important.
Fantastic. Now, I will say I have a lot more questions, but I also want to give you guys time to ask any questions you might have. So if you have any questions, we'll skip the rest of my questions. And if not, I'll keep asking. So does anybody have any questions for these 3? Yeah.
Here and there, not consistently. And I will completely admit that our capacity for fundraising is also limited by the actual staff that we have to do that, of course. But yes, we have seen, kind of charitable giving programs with like large non-horse related corporations. We had a couple of years, a good run with Norfolk Southern Rail Company. And so I know that stuff is out there. A lot of it is just coming down to capacity to spend time and track those opportunities down.
Anyone else? Oh, then I'll go back to one of mine. I was wondering if you could talk through maybe what one of your biggest milestones has been in each of your events.
Look, for me, I think for us, just seeing increased participation year on year, I think seeing the numbers of entries continually going up. For example, the Royal Queensland Show in August last year, we had a record-breaking number of entries for Thoroughbred and Standardbred Day. So 195 horses entered that show. And for me, that's the success in terms of these events is the promotion's great and the awareness and all of that's wonderful, but just seeing more and more people becoming involved with retired racehorses and, we kind of spoke about stimulating demand. That's very hard to measure, but the feedback we receive, you can see it and you can feel it, but, talking to our retrainers, we've got a retraining and rehoming program and, they're finding it easier and easier to rehome horses year on year, and the feedback we receive from participants in the events and things like that as well. We're seeing the market value of our horses increase. The Queensland Off the Track program's only been running for 4 years, and we've seen quite a big shift in the market value of these horses when they were going free off the track to now going for a couple of $1,000s. So for me, that's probably our key milestones. Yeah.
I think for me, it is every time I go to a clinic and I see the smiles on the faces of the people there, and I think, oh my God, all these horses have now found homes, and you see so many of the same faces, that are showing on a Saturday and they might go show jumping on a Sunday, and I think when you, again, you're looking at it and you're consuming it on social media, but when you're actually there and you're in the environment and you see the buzz, and Diana Cooper with Godolphin, she's been hugely part of the Troella setup, but her and her mother have a horse that is competing, he's showing and he's show jumping, and you want to see the smiles on their faces and the smile on Jamie's face who rides him, and I think the connection that these horses have with their owners and the people that are with them, like that is, if you could put that in a bottle and sell it, it's infectious. And I always think, and they don't get enough credit, fair play to every single person who takes on a thoroughbred, because it's not easy. And I just think they're incredible, and they just get stuck in, day out, and they show up every day, and fair play to them.
I think I mentioned it's our organization's 15-year anniversary and the event's 10-year anniversary. So just our sheer existence at this point is something to be proud of. But I think it was last year we surpassed 5,000 horses registered to the event since its inception. So when we kind of take how much we estimate the trainers are investing in the process, like that adds up to over $46 million invested in private people's funds and resources into these horses. And I just think that's phenomenal. We've been very focused on horses that are recently retired from racing, and we've got increasing calls over the years to see what we could do to impact the former broodmare space, broodmares that are being culled from breeding programs. So we were able to add a class of competition for former broodmares a couple of years ago, which has been great. It's a kind of little boutique group, but it's really gratifying to see people trying broodmares for the first time and realizing that they still have something to give. So I think that's really great. And we'll see sometimes like a makeover trainer will have the siblings of a horse, and then they'll come back and they'll have the broodmare the next year or something like that. So it's been cool to kind of just follow those threads and that sort of thing. So
that's fantastic. Well, I think that ends us right on time. So thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences. And
Thank you.
I know if you guys have other questions for them, definitely feel free to reach out. These three are a wealth of information when it comes to that. And again, if you're not following IFAR on social media, please go ahead and do so. And you can even pop questions to the social media channels in a message, and that might influence a future session as well. And you can also become a member, and that would be very much appreciated. So thank you. We're going to take a little break now, and then we'll be back in about 15.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could just hold you from your coffee for just one more minute. I don't know about you, but every time I have the benefit of listening through these panels, and I've listened to a few over the years, I always learn something new. And what that comes down to is obviously the quality of our speakers and our panellists, but also, just as importantly, is the work of our moderator. Jen has to leave us, unfortunately, shortly. But you've already shown your appreciation. She's done an outstanding job today. She's brought out the best of our panellists, and certainly we're very, very appreciative of your time and the hard work you've put in, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there is coffee waiting outside, and if we could reconvene for the last session at 3 o'clock, please. Thank you.